when I say sometimes that there might be people that are very serious Christians, and then you can be swallowed into civil service. That's why everyone must have the personal relationship with God, but deep, private, personal, internal, hold it like Daniel. Because God, yes, I would like to think everybody will preach. That's not how war is. Those people that preach are more of like the people at the front line, shooting, driving. That is not how it works everything or every time. The way it works many times is that you have the Daniels, you have the Nehemiahs. That's a kingdom plant. A Joseph, 13 years before, it's planted there. The difference with God is that he doesn't come and tell you that I'm planting you. It is why you don't complain and grumble and murmur. You don't know what God is doing. So he plants a Joseph. What Joseph's job? To take all the resources of Egypt and take 70 people and increase them to possibly 2 million. That's his job. And you think God will be stressed that he seemed to be a slave for 13 years. That's why I'm sure heaven looks around and goes like, wow, so I should change my plan in this big war, this large cosmic battle, because you're unhappy for a few years. Your brothers made you unhappy, so I'll now come and kill myself. Come on, enjoy your happiness. If you enjoy, and then you enjoy small. You know the child of Potiphar's house. Then this woman accused you falsely. That's the fastest way to the throne. I'm giving you connections. He has dropped you there. 13 years past. So what 13 years? You have developed abilities in abundance and scarcity that few have, plus the natural giftings I gave you. You're ready. Now where's Jacob? Israel, come. My promises, my plans continue. And he brings you, take care of them. And the guy takes care of feet, gives you the best land, does everything. Why would we, if you were God, would you all emotional? It's not fair. You look at it, is it fair? Everybody can't see, is it fair? You can waste your time talking, because this is the long-term battle. This is the war. I planted you here. If I told you what it is, you might be, in fact, you don't need to know what they call on a need-to-know basis. Why do you need to know? It's confidential. It's above your pay grade, Joseph. Your job is do what I said. Do what your father said. Don't commit adultery. See that woman? She's not your wife. Leave her alone. That's all. You don't need to know. If I had known. If you had known what? Didn't you know that you should not say, I fear God? How can I do this? That's all. That's your job, Joseph. Fear God and don't be honest. He had already learned that in his father's house. Be honest. He knew the basics. He kept to it. That's all he needed to know then. When the time came for him to know more, he knew more, and he said that God sends me ahead to sustain, to nourish you. Don't blame yourself. You meant it for evil. God meant it for good. He was understanding more. The father was hoping, raise his access level. He can now read this. He can look into this document. He was understanding better. Even then, he didn't understand everything. We should understand more than him by far, because we have the advantage of hindsight. And you look back and you go, whoa, God, this was what you were doing. Okay, I'm sorry for the little time I complained. Why was I complaining? But so you have people like Joseph, you have a Daniel, you have an Esther, you have a Mordecai who is planted in that gate. God does the long-term plan. He always will. It's how wars are fought. This is how wars are fought. There's no other way to fight the battle. You don't only have preachers, apostles, a guy is a prophet, moves around. No. It is why we must trust the Lord. It's why everybody must be led by the Spirit. You must. And it's why we must have knowledge. Because if you don't, you can be a sincere preacher and you go around saying everybody must leave everything they are doing now. I'll go and be a preacher. Have you not heard the end of the words coming? No, God needs to plant people. He will plant people. Long-term people. You'll be angry at them. Why are you in the judiciary? Because there has to be a judge. There's a plan. There's this plan that will activate in 15 years. And a judge with your training must be there with your mindset. Have you guys heard what's happening in America? You haven't heard that the Supreme Court justices have reversed Roe and Wade? I used to tell you guys about it a long time ago, before Trump became, and why they fight him so hard, that he's going to reverse the abortion law that made it a federal law that you're free to do abortion. They passed it a few days, 2 days ago already. 20-something states have banned abortion that fast after 50 years. How did that happen? The people, Supreme Court nominees that Trump appointed, 2 people. So the court has lain like this. I told you guys years ago, I told you that that's why they fight him so hard. Do you understand the implication, the ripple effect? If you see the trouble in America right now, immediately millions of babies will not be killed the way they've been killed like this for years. So less blood will be shed. It's not a matter of, well, it's their choice. Simply, since that choice is so hard now, fewer people will kill babies, and there's less blood supplied to the enemies of God and his purposes on the earth. These are long-term plans. So God put a Trump there, and he has done a good part of his job by nominating those people. He's not a Messiah. He's not supposed to have saved America from all troubles. No human being can do that. That's like saying Nehemiah will restore all of Israel to God. No, his job is to build a wall and help settle a remnant. Like Zerubbabel's job was not to build a wall. Everybody has a job. So God will position different ones at different times. We struggle with patience even when we often have faith. But it's through faith and patience that the promises are obtained. So the ignorant or only partially knowledgeable, you hear the word of the Lord and you go, yes, and you run to go and implement it immediately. But God says no. Often, David, I anoint you king, but it's not yet time. Your training commences. It burns in your heart what can be. It burns within you constantly how to bring about what in your mind you see. But the king who began the work is the one to complete it, not you. Your job is to obey daily and listen for more orders and instructions. Many of the errors in Christendom and in people's lives, the things that have led to defeat, hurt, damage, and dishonor to the name of the Lord, are people who heard the Lord and left to go and fulfill. Or put worse, who heard the Lord and left to become Lord. You were never Lord. You were just informed. Joseph, your brethren will bow to you. You will rule over them. You will rule over resource sufficient to feed the 12 tribes. You will rule over the resources needed. And they did. But how much hand did he have in that? None. So one of the greatest lessons of faith all of us must learn and retain and remind each other about is that if there's anything God ever told you, promises he has made, you better stop thinking of how to fulfill it. Today, 2 people spoke to me, and I could hear the both of them thinking that as it is, I can never fulfill any ideas I have had about ministry, or I probably will fail because I can't see how, as I am, I can fulfill the destiny I once had in my mind. They didn't necessarily talk about such destinies because, like Joseph, or maybe worse than Joseph, they don't remember. They think God didn't know they would be where they are. I told you that when you come to the end of yourself, when you has finished, you are beginning to be a possible candidate to achieve the things God intended from the beginning. But you heard me and nodded and looked like you agreed and left and say, I will do it. When you do it, you will know you didn't do anything. You will say it is not but the grace of God at work in me, like Paul, and mean it. It won't be that false thing that young Christians banter around. Oh, it's by the grace of God. As I often said, no, sir, you can't say that thing. Time has to pass before you can say. Before there is empty talk. You don't know what you're talking about. But it's okay. But it's amusing how people can be told something so often that they don't hear it. But it's okay. That's where experience comes in. You have to understand that it's not you. It's he that is at work in you to will and to do his good pleasure. Your job is to, like Joseph, do the day to day, the little by little. And when the day comes, you will look back and know it is God. When you say it is only God, you mean it. And the average young person, I mean in the work of the Lord, cannot say that sincerely. They say it's fake. It's only God. It's false humility. You will finish and you're not found. Then they'll pull you out of prison and use you, and you wonder who gave birth to all these children. That's how it works. That's how it works with everybody. Moses had it in him. He knew he was called to greatness. His mother told him the stories. And what is this one? We have been a sheep farmer for 40 years. Which dream? Good, ready. I think we can use it. I think it's ready. Okay. Moses. It always works like that. Jacob, who? Name them. It is how it works. Abraham, it's the same way. David, it's the same way. If God will use you, we are finished. Esther, we are finished. It's the same way. It's his way. And the ability to trust him in it is called faith. And that's what pleases him. Those who turn back, his soul is not pleased in them. They look at their circumstances and decide, I can't do it. They still use the word I, which is God's whole intention, to delete the I from it, so that all that is left is God, and God can be all in all. He came to Christians. He said, I want to be all in all. I'll start with you guys. I'll do it with the rest of the world. And we said, yes. And we started in faith, in the spirit. I want to end in the flesh and say, I did it. And he wonders, how can you start in the spirit and end in the flesh? How did you get justified at the beginning? Because you believed. How are you going to end it? It's because you will be believing. There's no other way. You're not going to believe at the beginning, at the end, it works. No, it will still be by faith. So he who comes to God must believe that he is, and is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Seek him, not do, but seek him. Seek him. It's our job to seek him. As we keep seeking, we will find it fulfilled. How that applies to us as part of those who are to interpret God's purposes in this land, our nation, and the world. Be obedient, yielded, compliant, and keep trusting. And stop being led by your head. Do not walk by flesh. Everyone stands or falls to his master. Therefore, my greatest duty, as should be yours, is to teach people to have one master, Jesus. People who use it to say, leave me alone. Don't tell me what to do. I stand or fall. That man stands or falls to his master. You don't break general rules. There's the general rule that applies to everyone, no matter what you claim you're doing. You don't go sleeping with your master's wife, Potiphares or Potipharas. Now, we don't know her name, but you don't say, I was trying to position myself. Never. That rule never changes. You stay there. I can tell you are wrong based on that. I have every right to judge you on this matter. You sinned. If any man calls himself a brother, 1 Corinthians 12, and does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's wrong. We are not discussing it. It is what it is. However, to look at him and say, he is not fulfilling his calling. He was called to be this, but he is here. He is there. Who said, except God tells you that that's not where he should be? Is he breaking the general rules? No. Then God can plant him in that place until such a time as he's activated to carry out a major duty that he was created to perform, or someone else failed to perform and it passed to him. Bob Jones tells his story, of which I heard a part today, that his calling was from a Zimbabwean man, Swaziland, Kingdom of Swaziland, the country called Zimbabwe. The grandfather of a man who came to his house and said, knock the door open and say, I want my father's mantle, my grandfather's mantle. Physically, they didn't come in the spirit. I want my grandfather's mantle. and he gave him. But when he gave him, he retained it too, because whatever you have received, according to him. I had heard a tiny part before, but today I heard the fuller story. He saw the man in a vision, saw him very clearly. So he was a greatly used man of God, greatly prophetic man of God, but he committed adultery. And that once you do that, Satan has the right to attack you in this manner. Then the father, the son of that grandfather, was a mighty evangelist, but he had no prophetic dimension to his ministry. But the son has a prophetic, and he said the mantle skipped a generation because of the sin. It skipped a generation and came to him. That's what Bob Jones, saw when he was a 9-year-old boy walking, and Angel Gabriel rode down on a horse, and through it you could see was used. It was a thick thing, like this leathery thing that had been worn, well used, wasn't brand new. And he pointed out that he wasn't called from his mother's womb. It was given. It wasn't a calling from his mother's womb. It was someone's calling that the person had trashed. They took it and gave him. Spiritual things are much more real than we realize. So people have callings and purposes. I just paused to interject with that, to say that it's not everyone that was called to something from his mother's womb. As we are alive now, people are failing in their callings, and some people are pursuing it. And it is why we are faithful in ours, they take from others and give. Matthew 25, Luke 19. Take it and give to this faithful one. Even while we are alive now, you're faithful systemically. People who are trashing their giftings, you may have it if we apply ourselves consistently and lovingly. So we may have people here who were called to operate in prophetic ministry, or the ministry of the prophet, even the office of a prophet, but you weren't called necessarily to be given to intercession. You may have been called to be in the educational sector, or the medical sector, or some other professional sector, or artisanship, one trade or the other. Those are things, called or not. Every human being should work with their hands, that which is good. So sometimes God doesn't really care which school, which what, except that passing through those places, there are lessons to learn. That you could go to this one or that one, you could still work out those pieces of your training in these different places. But if there's a package that was part of your life's calling, in addition to that package, 1, 2, 3 things, you can pick others and add, because you have committed yourself to God wholly. The more you obey, the more obedient you are, the more compliant you are, the greater the chances of God saying, you produce 10 from one. That's commitment. You 5, you 3, you 2. Take that his own that she threw away. Give it to him, not to the one that had 2, 5, 10, but this one who has shown the greatest capacity to empty themselves and devote themselves to what they were called to do. That's the basis on which others are given the callings and giftings and abilities of others, because they stretch themselves. And for them to be able to stretch themselves like that, you can be sure that they've given up more things. How do I explain it? They've emptied their life, their room of more things, thrown more things out of the window, so there's more space to receive more. But when our lives are clubbed with our desires, our wants, we can have the greatest callings. But because our wantings have filled up so much of the room, even the little we are given, there's no space for us to exercise it. So the more we free ourselves, it is not to acquire you justification. It is that the more dead you are, the more alive you can be, because the more of life can flow into your space. The less of you there is, the more of God that can come in. What did that fellow have? He was too full of himself. That's why he refused to do what the master wanted. He was too full of himself. Said, you do this and you do that. You have time to see that. He was full of himself. Like, master, I'm better than you. how you run things is wrong. But judgmental, so he was full of himself, literally, was lifted in pride. And that is what fills up a room the most, fills up people's lives and hearts. Get rid of you. It's called humility. Then more and more of the Lord's plans can occupy your space, and people can come to you and say, wow, look at how this person's life is dispensing so many things. So you could be a professional or some worker in some field, a king's cupbearer, and you're also a city wall builder at the same time. How is that possible? Do you mean there was no one else to do that? You mean this man here speaking to the king's ear, giving him good advice once in a while? Is that not powerful enough a position? He's been found faithful here, so he can be given more. For everything we do faithfully, we open up ourselves to the possibility of being given more to do. But we must be found faithful. That is what is required of stewards, that they be found faithful. So if we make it our life's duty to be faithful in what we are called to do, and divest ourselves of as many distractions and competing factors in our hearts and lives, the more the Lord can assign us more. The commitment we have, the devotion to doing what we are given per time, will allow for us to be given more. So in one life, we can manifest multiple giftings and callings with the same length of time, like everybody else, while some people may do nothing, simply because they were too surrounded by their desires and distractions. And this is why the devil distracts us so much, especially people that are committed to the Lord, because he knows it's not a matter of is he or she doing what he or she is called to do. The answer is yes, but not with enough commitment. At the rate he's going to produce 1 minute from 1 minute. Okay, maybe 2. Okay, but they did not give the waster's mina to the person with 2 or 5. They gave it to the person with 10, because that is the most faithful person. From the same one, the person produced the most. And they said, Master, he has 10. Say, yes. To him who has, more will be added. The one who has from what you were given originally, more will be added. It won't just happen in the age to come. It's happening right now, if we will be faithful. Is it always after we've proven ourselves faithful? No, but we are given the chance, and if we take it and are faithful with it, Lord goes, okay, amazing, okay, you did well here, so let's test you out with more. Joseph did well in Potiphar's house, so they were able to test him out with a country. Did well in a prison, yeah, 1 test, 2 tests, he passed with flying colors. As we are faithful in little, he will equip us with more. If we don't keep our eyes so much on our flaws or shortcomings that it becomes the distraction. Oh, I said I'll pray this amount of time. Oh, I said, yes, we have to pull ourselves together. But if you don't let that discourage you from doing the one you are meant to do, if you don't let that disqualify you and you say, there's no need, you can do nothing with me, and you march away, then we can go on to accomplish more. But I spoke about that in an earlier recording today called The Journey of the Obediences. If we will take that understanding and add to this, we will likely achieve great things. And wherever we find ourselves, whatever natural positioning the Lord places us in, when the time comes, he can still send us to be at the front lines if he wants. Carlos Anacondia, at the time in the South American continent, was the most results producing evangelist. There were others, but he was the most outstanding. Where did he come in from? The bank. He used to work in a bank. He was not a young person. How can someone maybe in his 30s or 40s be called to become the greatest evangelist, casting out demons, having such massive results at such a late age, as opposed to someone who was used from a young age? You can't tell God what to do. I suspect he was a good worker in his office. Dana Karen of India was working in a bank. At a much later age, God called him out. Look at what he was used to do. So God can call anyone. Faithfulness is what is expected of us, not perfection. Faithfulness, dedication, commitment, sincerity, consistency. All right, so long-term work plan, that was my emphasis. That was why I opened my mouth to start talking about how God has long-term work plans, and he does it with people. All right, so maybe that's something that can give you guys the basis to pray, that wherever they are in this country, in different places at different times, that God should position them, equip them, and direct us to them. They can be there and nobody knows to pray for them. Why? Because you think they are nothing. You don't know what they are being prepared to do. So I want us to pray for that. Pray for those that the Lord will use in this regard. Wherever they are, God should direct their steps and really help them to learn righteousness. Check all of them out. They were righteous. Or the devil will take you out. So what the devil does is that he makes you personally immoral. So he takes you out. Simply, you're not available for this matter. That's all. He disqualifies you. Imagine if Daniel had anything on him that could be used. Nothing to say. The people checked. There was nothing. He wasn't greedy. He wasn't. He was straightforward. They could find nothing on him. Mordecai, if there had been anything on him, Haman would have used it. There was nothing. David, if there was anything on him, he would have been taken out. There was nothing, and he still suffered so much. But there was nothing you could put on David. Joseph, he was still attacked the way he was, but there was nothing. He was clean. We always must find ourselves on the personal side, which is the importance of teaching about holiness, righteous living, and the rest. So important. But after that foundation has been laid, the other part that people must obey moment by moment, time after time, go whichever way he directs, willingly or compulsorily. Go, and don't worry, don't fret and agitate. At this rate, am I accomplishing my faith? No, it's not your job, it's his job. He will order you. Make sure Satan has no right or hand in your life, none whatsoever. Make sure it empowers him to take us out. We must not give him that power. It's war. Do I apply it? Russia knows that there's an American official that is very dangerous. If he becomes president, he will maintain a very hard line against Russian interests. So they set him up with a prostitute or an underage girl, and that knowledge is there. Since that information is available all the time, they know it for 10 years, but there's no great threat. And then it is said, this guy stands a very good chance of becoming the next American president. No, they leak it. Who did they leak it to? They leak it to his opponent in the political race. You don't know who leaked it. They say someone has information. They leak it, and the guy handles it from there. But who had the information? Russia. Who kept that info? China. Who was aware of this? Israel. This guy is not in love with Israel. He will fight Israel's interest. When did they get the information? That's why they gather all information and just keep. Expose him. The pictures with the young girls, underage girls. Expose it. The guy drops from the race. He's never a threat. War is fought like this. This is still the war. There were no nuclear missiles fired, no bombs, no tanks rolled out. Information was weaponized and used. It worked. The important thing is that it worked, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters. All right. Prepare for the long haul. That's what we must do. That's our calling. Prepare people for the long haul. Not when they plant you. Not when they plant you, Joseph. You start misbehaving in that Egypt you have gone to. If it wasn't planted, you will misbehave in Egypt. You will not save God's people. Satan will use it. You will not. This is our reality.